There can be only one.
I would say good morning, friends, but if you're a Cowboy fan after the worst weekend in forever, it is not a good morning. There can be only one. Actually, it's worse than I thought. I thought that the Dallas Cowboys were the only team in the last 30 years since their last Super Bowl to not make it to an NFC championship, but I was wrong. It's actually this century, the last 25 years, now that the Commanders have joined the ranks of teams going for the NFC championship. Maybe I jinxed it. Riding back with Michael on Saturday, we went down through the list of teams that have been to the Super Bowl and or a championship. And I remember seeing when Mike McCarthy was hired, there were three teams. The Lions, the Cowboys, and Washington. And now we are the absolute worst because now both of those teams have made it to an NFC championship game. And during that time, it's all been Jerry Jones and his merry men that have been running the organization with essentially the same philosophy. We believe in our guys. We trust the process, and we don't believe in free agency. And we are the smartest guys in the room. And that has led to not an NFC championship game. I wake up in the morning happy that I'm beside my wonderful bride of, come next week, 22 years of marriage, 23 years of being together. I got an email. I always get lots of emails, and I try and read all of them and things. I got this email from Olivia that says, "Yep, Mike and I have been Cowboy fans since the very beginning, and we are in mid-70s. Question mark, time to reconsider? Never have been so hopeless for the boys. I love your rants. They help me a lot. So matter our talent, no matter the money, no matter the hype, we are still a loser in culture. And what do we have post Jerry? Catboy Stevens. Looking bleak. Fellow sufferer, Olivia." That's one. And Olivia and Mike, I feel your pain, girl. You're in your mid-70s and suffering. My dad's in his mid-80s and suffering and wanting to see them do something. And it doesn't look like it's going to happen anytime soon. But then I get another one. I get lots of these kind. Stop blaming anybody. Dak is trash. He's the reason. Open your freaking eyes, man. Dak sucks. Fly, Eagles fly. Jalen Hurts, second NFC championship game, buddy. You do know that Saquon Barkley rushed for more yards than your quarterback passed. You do realize that, right? That he had almost 200 yards rushing. Are we going to discount the fact that having a running game makes a difference? I bet the Baltimore Ravens are wishing they had remembered that yesterday, because when they had first and goal on the 3-yard line, that they didn't just run Derrick Henry instead of throwing the ball to their tight end, who was wide open and dropped it. Literally wasting the best season of Lamar Jackson's career, which incidentally was with a great running back. See, in life, you should learn from your mistakes. And forgive me, my voice is still gone from all the rants yesterday, so I'm trying not to make it completely gone because I'm going to need it because we've got a lot to digest here. The Cowboys, and you can see my hair is literally, it's ready to be on fire. That's why it's up here like it's tinderbox. It just needs a spark and it's gone. We have a lot to digest here with the team. And the reality of this all is it's all deflection. That's what it is. We're deflecting from the problem of the Dallas Cowboys, which is we get partially there. And I can say for myself, the hardest thing for me to do is to finish something. I get gang-ho when it's time to demo a place and start framing it up. You get the drywall up on there and things, start getting the painting and everything done and the molding, the trim. The hardest part for me, though, is those last details that I miss caulking a piece of molding and things, It's those little things I hate to go back and deal with. I get 98% of the stuff perfect. But that last 2%, I really have to push myself to get there. And it's just hard. And that's the thing with the Cowboys. They do a lot of things right. You cannot discount what they've done with finding Turpentine and Albury from USFL guys. They do. Those are 1 in a million type players. But you can't sit there and think we're going to be able to build a whole team that way. You can't discount finding Lawson, veteran, unemployed guy. Another 1 in a million find, just like you did with George Selvey. Thing is you can't build a team completely just hoping that you're going to be able to do that. And in the same way, you found, 4 incredible offensive linemen over the last 15 years. And Tyron Smith, Tyler Smith, Zach Martin, and Travis Frederick in the draft and being able to plug them in as rookies and go. But you can't expect that to happen every single time. And so the problem here is they're not using all the things that are available to them with free agency to find those spots where you do have a hole. See, we can have an offense that people say, well, the Cowboys offense, they were number 1 in the NFL. Dak had 36 touchdown passes, and they failed in the playoffs. Why did they fail in the playoffs? Because teams could run roughshod on them, and they found ways to shut us down because we didn't have the multitude of weapons. You can blame Dak. And this was funny because the first thing on Bleacher Report this morning was a tweet from Brian Broaddus. And the person had tweeted at Brian Broaddus and said, Brian Broaddus, so with Jaden Daniels already making it to the finals, are all the excuses for Dak over with, or it is simply the team? And Brian Broaddus' response, why is it all or nothing with Dak? You can't have a discussion on the platform without getting a fight over him. Does he need to be better? Sure. Has he played better? Yes. Stop taking discussions as an excuse making. 100% right. Brian Broaddus. I'll take his word over anybody else's because he's been there, he's seen it all, and he's done it all. From working with organizations to being on the outside, of course, talking about it and seeing these things. You cannot discount his experiences. For the keyboard warrior out there that thinks that they know everything, you look at those teams that are in the playoffs right now. Even if you took Dak out of the equation and put somebody else in there, you do not have what it takes to compete with those teams as currently constructed. And with our 9 draft picks, we will not be able to plug all those holes. You just won't. And it doesn't matter which coach you bring in, especially if you hamstring them, they will not be able to overcome that. We're looking at a multitude of different coaches, Coach Prime, Now, Kingsbury is on the list now that Washington's in the final because he's the brand new flavor of the week. You've got now Aaron Glenn, who played for the Cowboys, who they're familiar with, which might say a lot. We got the interview today with Leslie Frazier. We heard about Robert Sala's interview over the weekend, and it went well, just like Kellen Moore's went well. They all went well. But in the end, you have to have a coach that is allowed to have a vision and has an organization that's willing to work with it. And that starts from the top and goes down. 30 years of Jerry Jones's failure is what we've got. 30 years. They've been chasing being better than Jimmy Johnson, and all they've proved is, Jerry, you're not Jimmy Johnson. You're not Jimmy Johnson. And now you're at the point of literally continually annihilating the base. Cowboy fans like Olivia, contemplating is a time to move on. And if we go through and you end up hiring another howdy doody, another guy that does not have the fire in the belly, who can't stand up to you, or that you give some of the control to, if Catboy is still making insane contracts, and I'm a Dak Prescott fan, don't get me wrong. I think Dak Prescott has done amazing things. You know, as we talk about all these other quarterbacks, unfortunately, Lamar, two-time MVP, he ain't been to a Super Bowl either. At the moment, neither does Josh Allen, and he's still got Pat Mahomes to go through. I've had people say, get rid of Dak and go get Trevor Lawrence, because, of course, Trevor Lawrence has done incredible things. He's got one playoff win after throwing 5 interceptions in that game. Go get Justin Herbert, who's 0-2. And I remember when people said, go get Deshaun Watson, and I still have people say, go get Deshaun Watson, who is now with his second Achilles tear in 3 months. Trade Dak to Tennessee, even though he's got a no-trade clause, and you're going to take a $103 million dead hit, and try and move up to get Sedor and Dion. Everybody out there seems to, as I've always said, and shout out to Stuart Morrison, who's no longer here, I said I hate fantasy football because it's not real. I can't root for guys that are on other teams. It's just something wrong with that. But that mentality of, I'm going to sit this guy next week, and I'm going to grab this guy and plug him in, and it's going to be great. It doesn't work that way in real football. It doesn't. And until the Joneses start trying to run this like a real NFL franchise, and that starts with saying, we need to get Micah Parsons' deal done now. When people say, we don't have money currently at this moment accounted for in our salary cap is $21 million for Micah Parsons' fifth-year option. Much like they did CeeDee Lamb, they get his contract done before everybody else starts getting theirs and the numbers start growing up. They can save and have right now another $10, $11 million of cap space. $10, $11 million is enough to keep Osa and Digizua, as opposed to what you did last year and letting Dorrance Armstrong, who made a key sack in the game on Saturday, or Dante Fowler, who had 10 sacks during the season, which helped that team win games. That's the mentality that the Cowboys have to have. And the Cowboys, they need to hire a coach, get him, his people together that he can work with, Give him what he thinks he needs to work with and get the hell out of the way. Till we do that, shit ain't going to change. So, Jordan Schultz, we're going to finish this off this morning as my voice continues to crater. This was actually, over the weekend, the possibility of Deion Sanders. Now, there's no scheduled interviews with Deion, but Jerry can pick up the phone and talk to him at any point, and they know, that's a guy they know. So don't look for them. Mike Zimmer is basically in a holding pattern where they're basically kind of like, Mike, we want to let the chips fall, and we're going to need you in some capacity. We believe Jason Witten is in the mix somehow. He is going to be part of the staff, be it with Kellen Moore. If Kellen Moore's hired, probably look for Mike Zimmer to be the defensive coordinator. Also, Brian Schottenheimer is now a dark horse to also still be here. What the Cowboys are looking at or wanting to do is they want to keep the offense consistent, so it's not the big change of coordinators where you're changing a whole new system. They want to try and make this so it's easier to be successful for Dak and what they have already built. They don't want to start from square one, which probably is a good idea, but that probably means that Kellen Moore is your head coach. I don't know where to go with that.
Isn't Jerry just putting this out there to keep people talking about the star? What do you think about that?
No, I think it's very real. One of the things that stood out to me was that over the last week or so, when you had Mike McCarthy in limbo, Jerry was having internal conversations inside the building about where do we want to go next if we ultimately don't extend Mike. And obviously they never had negotiations, and here we are. And Deion's name has come up not only because of how good of a job he's done in Colorado, but I think the relationship that he has maintained with Jerry over the last 3 decades is pretty significant. And to that point, Deion has said publicly that he does not want to make the jump to the pros, that he's happy at college, and that's what best suits him. But when Jerry Jones calls, when it's the Cowboys, when it's the gravitas of an organization that very few, if any, else have, it was just a call that he had to take. And I think it's been made very clear to me that Deion is going to be one of the top candidates. Now, there will be other candidates. There will be other interviews. They put themselves, the Cowboys did, in a predicament to a degree because of waiting. They were not able to get the slip in for Aaron Glenn or Ben Johnson, among others, this week. So we'll see how what ramifications that plays. But this is very real, and should Deion want to continue pursuing, or should Deion have the interest, I would say he's one of the top guys.
Jordan, this is my unfair question of the day for you. Is the money drying up at Colorado?
I don't think so. And someone actually asked me as well whether or not this was a leverage play by Deion to get Colorado to pay more. And it was made clear to me as well that the relationship that Deion has with the university, and specifically the AD, Rick George, is so strong that that's just not something he would do at this point. And I think the success they've had, obviously the first year, and 9 wins this year, and individually the success, especially with Shador and Travis, I wouldn't go that route. And it's just not something that's been relayed to me.
Jordan, you brought up Shador, and as you know, one of the things that Prime has been outspoken about is he would really only go to the pros if he could coach his son.
Right.
Does that have any correlation here? Would the Cowboys then have to be in position to get Shador?
So I don't think so. And, it's interesting because when Deion made those comments, especially I think it was last week on the Today Show, it was before the Cowboys job became open. But, listen, Dak Prescott's the future of this franchise at the quarterback position. They paid him just, before the season, right before the season started, a record-setting deal. He will be the quarterback. And if Deion were to come to Dallas, I don't see any other scenario. I know that's the hot button topic, and I totally get it, but I just don't see a scenario where Dak is not the quarterback of Dallas moving forward, regardless of the head coach.
Jordan, you're obviously very close with the Sanders situation stuff. How much would he like to coach against his son if, say, he would end up at the Giants at 3?
For me.
Yeah, that's interesting because this is good right here. Sorry, I'm just getting out of the car. This is good, my man. Thank you. I think listen, if you go to Dallas, you're at the forefront, as you guys well know, of the NFL. And, you know, I don't know what's going to happen at the top of the draft, and I don't know where Shador and Cam Ward are going to go. But I do know that if he were to coach against Shador, that to me is the next best thing to coaching him. You know, the opportunity to see him twice a year, you know, to be able to see his growth in the division, I think that would be pretty cool. It's a fair question. There's so many dominoes that are going to happen in terms of the top of the draft and whether or not the Giants end up getting a quarterback, albeit Shador Sanders. But I hear what you're saying. I still feel like I'm actually curious from a Dallas standpoint. How has the report been met by fans? Has it been 50-50 or is it one way or the other?
I would say it's pretty close to 50-50, if not,
I think in
favor of it. I think a lot of people believe that this Cowboys team is going to be really,
bleak,
worse than last year, talent-wise, and that this would be a way to, sort of curry engagement and excitement around the Cowboys one way or another.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Jerry, the fact that Jerry loves making a splash hire or any splash at all. And the fact that I think there's very few people, this was communicated to me as well, there's very few people that can
move the needle like Deion. Jerry's
cachet and understand the prestige of what that franchise is. I think Deion is clearly one of those people. And the fact that he essentially gets the first call from Dallas before they actually do a formal interview with anyone else, not just him, I think that says a lot. So I think it'll take some time, but I wouldn't circle back to what I said earlier, that it is very real, assuming Deion wants and has the interest.
And then I'm sure you've seen the quote from about a month ago right here on 105 through the Fan. Jerry was asked about Deion. Obviously, Mike was still on the job, but he talked about one of his greatest skills is, he almost has no peer as far as being a recruiter, and that's not a huge prerequisite for NFL coaches. It wasn't a total shutdown of the idea or an endorsement, but the way he talked about it, if you read it between the lines, he just, to me, it seemed like Jerry didn't believe that the Deion skill set demonstrated would give him a high chance of success in the NFL.
Yeah, I saw that, and I think that's, we're living in a different world because, I think at that point, Jerry and probably most of that building believed there was a pretty good shot that Mike would be back on a multi-year deal, and obviously it didn't happen. But one of the other questions I had, or that was the question I had, and one of the things that was echoed to me by multiple people within this search from Dallas was that Deion has been running the Colorado program much like an NFL program. Obviously you have the portal and the recruiting, and that doesn't really translate. But the way he assembled his staff, the way he relates to players, and I don't know, it's very hard to go from college to the pros. And I think I would say it's almost impossible to have that success. But I think Deion does possess the prerequisite skills to do it. And I think because he's so confident and authentic to himself, and because he has the relationship with Jerry, with Steven, with Charlotte, and the organization and city, I think he's very well equipped to do it. And obviously I'm, speaking from talking to people within the Dallas organization as well who believe he could be the guy.
I mean, I saw C.D. Lamb liked the Instagram post about Jerry speaking with Deion Sanders, so at least – one of the key players here would really, really like that. Could you imagine other NFL players? Is Deion star that big that they would choose the Cowboys as a result of Prime being the coach here?
From a free agency standpoint, you mean?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think it's possible. Deion has a way of communicating. I don't know if how many of your listeners have watched Coach Prime on Amazon, but I would implore him to check it out, even just for a few minutes, because he has a very specific way of getting his message across. And I use that word authentic. I don't want to overuse it, but I think it's very telling for him. And because of that, I think guys will relate. I really do. And does that mean he'll attract free agents from other places? I wish I could tell you yes. I don't know, but I would assume it would help. And
couldn't hurt any.
I also believe that Dallas, because they haven't had the sustained playoff success that any of the fans certainly would, all the fans would certainly want, and I think Jerry probably feels they should have had, I think it's time to strongly consider going outside the box with a hire like this. And that's not to say that Deion will be the next head coach, but just the fact that they're having this conversation and that both sides are interested, there's mutual interest, I think says a lot about where the organization's at. And if you're a Cowboys fan, hopefully where Jerry's at in terms of thinking outside the box. It's very important to me.
Fox Sports NFL insider Jordan Schultz with us here.
All right, we'll leave it there. I think right now, the way we've been feeling, punched in the gut by the season, seeing the success of others and the failures of the Dallas Cowboys, everything it seems like since this time last year when we lost to the Green Bay Packers, that every single move that the Cowboys have made have come back to haunt them. Every one of them have hurt this team and literally destroyed the season. The Cowboys, they're going to have to make some real moves to start trying to win back the fans. So many fans are done. I am a Cowboy fan for life, but damn if they don't make this thing hard and have you questioning if we've still been boys. Well, we are the one, the only one, that has not seen an NFC championship since 1999. We'll be following along the shit show that is the Dallas Cowboys. Peace.